Is that added pressure being here?
Nope. Okay. Also, one more thing is with NASCAR, when we were to go to Mexico and Canada, would you be for a stadium race, street race, or road course?
I would prefer not do the stadium racing unless the stadium's bigger than the one we've been doing it in. And outside of that, I'm good with whatever.
Okay, thanks.
As Atlanta continues to age, where do you see it evolving to down the road?
That's a good question. I mean, it surprised me just the amount of color it's lost, over the last, year and a half or so. But it did, it's cold out, right? So the grip level's kind of high, and curious to see if the race feels any different. But it still seems like it has a lot of grip. So I think it'll probably be a little while. Seems like the asphalt gets better over like pavement jobs that were done in the mid-2000s didn't last as long as the ones that they do now. So I'm not sure if the process has gotten better and more efficient for highways and roads, and that kind of transitions into this stuff. But it seems like this stuff, like Texas, Michigan, like those places, just they look like they're aging, but they kind of aren't at the same time. So we'll kind of have to wait and see what this one does.
What's the trickiest part of the racetrack here? Because there are characteristics built in even when it was completely smooth in the beginning of the pave. So what's the part that makes you have to pay the most attention or woe up the most? Or?
Well, I think for now it's just the draft and when the accordion happens, and that can kind of happen anywhere. But I feel like entering 3 is a little more subtle. The banking picks up a little slower than it does into 1. And anytime you have a slower banking transition from flat to to whatever the corner banking is, that typically is just a little more vulnerable location than turns that you land in the banking harder like you do into 1.
Chase, talk about your qualifying lap today. Your qualifying lap today.
What about it?
I guess it's 22nd where you ended up come out of the throttle, or
nope,
just
wide open,
just as fast as you go today.
That's right.
Do you think any of the changes Ford made to their nose in the off season made a big difference in them all having success today and at Daytona last week?
I do think the anytime a nose meets flush with a rear bumper is typically going to be good for speedway racing. So I don't think that has anything to do with their pace and qualifying group.
Gotcha. Do you have you put together a schedule yet this year for your short track and dirt track races? I know years past you did Sonoya and you did New Smyrna a couple weeks ago.
I don't have a set schedule at the moment. We're just kind of playing it by ear and just seeing where my schedule's at, I guess, as we get closer to the summer and so on. So no, nothing. It's nothing super structured.
Any particular events you'd like to run this year?
I think on the asphalt side it'd probably be similar to what I did last year, which had emphasis on midweek races, just because they're a little easier for me to get to than the weekend stuff. But we're going to kind of wait and see as the year progresses and see how things are going.
Any desire to go back to SRX for a one-off race or two?
I'm good. 2 for 2. I'm very content with hanging it up.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the back-to-back kind of schedule of Daytona and then this track.
I don't make the schedule, so I'm kind of good with wherever they tell us to go. And, I live, fairly close to here, so 2 races in Atlanta is great by me, and whenever that falls in the season is also good with me too.
Has there been any thought, Chase, any discussion within the 9 team of these back-to-back weeks and just car cycle and mentally and physically 2 drafting tracks back-to-back? Have you guys just put any thought into how important these 2 weeks are to not start behind too much in a hole?
Obviously I don't want to get behind any more than anybody else does, but we can't fix the schedule, so I'm not going to worry about it. It is what it is, and we're going to do our best to prepare, and that's all you can do, right? Like, try to control the things that are in your hands, and outside of that, just move on. So hopefully we can have 2 I thought we had a solid week at Daytona. We didn't have a great finish, but I thought we put together a solid race. I thought we executed a good race. We minimized a lot of mistakes, and the end of the race didn't go our way, but it could have been worse for sure. Could have got caught up in the crash there or whatever, and had a much worse finish than we did. So, this will be probably very similar to Daytona and big wrecks and trying to survive. So hopefully we can do that here, get some points, and it'd be nice to get a win if possible, and get ready for Vegas, because that's where things are really going to start. You're really going to get an idea of where you're at and what you need to do and how far behind you are, if any.
What was it like last week from the perspective in the fuel saving mode? Guys talk about on the radio just the frustrations about it, how you as a driver handle it, and how it's involved. I mean, I know fuel saving is always important, but certainly seemed to be a bigger level last week.
Yeah, I think, to be totally honest with you, it's been going on for about 2 years, and nobody talked about it because the whole field wasn't doing it. So as everyone caught on to that via SMT, and everybody can see everything now, right? So eventually all those it's just these everybody, you're in such a tight box that everybody is so much the same, it's hard to be different. We talk about this all the time, and that's the product you get when we are all buying the same parts and pieces and doing the same stuff. So you put the teams in a tough position to be race teams, because it's their job to try to find an advantage somewhere, some way, somehow, whether it's with strategy or you're just so limited with the car, you're reaching and grasping for any little advantage you can get. So when speedway racing started with this thing, and even a little bit before this car, but that was starting to go on, and there were a handful of guys that were serious in fuel save mode at certain times of those play races. So I'm not surprised that it got to the point that it did, but limiting time on pit road is a premium. I don't know how you fix that unless you make another rule. So we can make more rules and probably fix it some way somehow, but that rule book's pretty thick as it is.
Is it a problem, or is it just evolution?
I think it's just part of the product that we have, and the teams are going to be forced to find any advantage that you can possibly have, and they're going to extract that. That's what they've always done, So I don't necessarily know that it's a problem, but that is what the teams have to do to go the fastest. So that's predicated on stage lengths and how big the fuel cell is.
Would you
I don't know how you fix that.
Would you advocate for a fourth stage at Daytona and Talladega?
I don't think so. I mean, but maybe. I mean, I don't know that it would really matter, change a whole lot at the end of the day. I mean, you'd award 10 more, award more points. It'd be like the 600, right? Make it up 4 stages. So just it puts a lot of points out there for those 3 stages is a lot, but having 3 opportunities during the event to get points versus just 2, I mean, it can definitely change the dynamic. So listen, I don't have the answers. I'm just trying to answer y'all's questions the best I can, but I don't have the solutions. I'm not acting like I have the solutions. I don't want to have the solutions. I plead the fifth.
We have time for 2 more questions.
When you were here last summer, you had some fairly candid comments about changes in the setup with your team that had caused some difficulties since the end of 2022. I know you said it really starts next week in Vegas, but what did you learn last week about where you are this year? Do you feel better about those setup changes that you spoke of?
I mean, I don't totally remember what I was talking about back then, but I feel good about where we're at. I think we're in a good place, and I think next week you'll get your first report card as to where you really stack up and where you are as it pertains to regular racetracks. So I'm excited to get out there and see, but I think until you get there, it's kind of hard to guess, and because really me giving you an answer today is a guess. I don't know. We'll see after we get done with Vegas.
Hooters, Atlanta, Kelly Blue Book, Coca-Cola, and Dawson right down the road. Do you feel any added pressure